Ever since both my husband and I started to work remotely, it has been a dream to have this beautiful and highly functioning home office that we could turn into a bedroom when we want to sell the apartment. And it's finally becoming a reality. So today I'm gonna bring you along as we start transforming one of the bedrooms into this DIY home office of our dreams. And let's just say already that this was not a straightforward journey. If you are new here, my name is Linnea and I'm currently flipping my second apartment because I'm on a quest trying to see if I can build a sustainable real estate business by renovating 11 homes. The main change that we wanted to do with this space was to remove the existing wardrobes and instead build a thinner wall closer to the room next door in a way that this room becomes a slightly larger and the other room it just remains the same size as it is today. And the idea for us has been that this space then more clearly could become a primary bedroom and the other room could be a space that the next owner could turn into a children's bedroom or a guest room or maybe an office. And if you'd like to find out more about the design ideas for this space but also the rest of the apartment, go and watch the previous video where I share a full empty house tour and reveal all our design plans. We did not even get to start demolishing the existing wardrobes before the problems began. I mean, buying an apartment remotely without seeing it in real life comes with its risks. And we definitely faced all of them as soon as we entered the apartment in real life. And the first thing that we realized was that it was not only the balcony that smelled like cigarettes, like the ad had stated. We did know that this could be the case, but we were definitely not prepared for how much the rest of the apartment smelled like cigarettes. The second thing that we realized was that a lot of the electrical wiring and electrical plugs were not just dated, but actually unsafe, to the point where we could easily get an electrical shock from several of the outlets. And the last thing, as if the other 2 points were not enough, it also became very quickly clear that there was a high risk of different materials containing asbestos around the apartment. So before we could even make a plan for how to get the walls finished or the floors ready, we had to make this space safe. And to do so, we started by getting all the materials that we thought could contain asbestos tested. And if you don't know what asbestos is, it's a collection of different minerals that, if airborne and if you breathe them in, could cause several different deadly diseases such as cancer. So it's a big problem. And in Sweden, just like many other countries, it's illegal to use asbestos within different construction materials today. But if you work with an older building, there could still be materials containing asbestos in those buildings, so you have to be careful. And you can get materials tested by taking samples yourself or getting a professional to do it. And we decided to do both because we felt like we needed to talk with someone who had worked with this challenge for many years to get some advice and better understand the situation. So we had a guy come in and have a look around, and he took a couple of tests. And then afterwards, we took some additional tests ourselves. And with those sent away, we just had to wait to find out if there was an issue or not. Then we moved on to the electricity. And we brought in some electricians who rewired all the electricity in the entire apartment and changed the electrical box, all the outlets and switches. And with the electricity taken care of, we could make a plan for how to deal with the smell. I spent a lot of time researching how to get rid of cigarette smell. And after a while, I finally came up with a plan containing everything from how to remove the kind of oily texture that the nicotine in the smoke creates, as well as how we could actually, in the end, lock in the smell so that we wouldn't realize that it was there. And at this point, with the plan at hand, we also got the test results back for the asbestos. And to our very big surprise, they were all negative. The guy who came and looked at our apartment, he said that there was a very high risk of many of the materials containing asbestos. So when the result came back, we were so revealed that we did not need to deal with how to get rid of all the asbestos in a safe way, and we could finally have a green light to move on with the renovation. We started by removing all the existing wardrobes. It could be a bit fun to demolish something, but it's also a lot of hard effort and hard work. But with all the materials removed, we could begin working on the new wall. But at this point, I got really ill and Joachim had to continue without me. And he started working on the stud wall. First, he put up the frame, attaching it to the walls, the ceiling and the floor. And afterwards, he could put in both the vertical and horizontal studs. And with the stud frame in place, it was time to add the drywall on one side of the wall before adding insulation and the last piece of drywall. This is when I finally started to get better, so we could help each other out when it came to taping and mudding all the seams and all the corners. And the taping and the mudding can be a quite fun process, but it's primarily a very messy process, leaving a layer of dust on everything in your home if you want it or not. But it's definitely something that you can do yourself. And if you want to do it, I could really recommend watching Vancouver Carpenter here on YouTube, as that's the channel that we've been binging, trying to learn how do you actually do this in the best way possible. Parallel to working on the new wall, we also needed to remove all the wallpaper in the room. There were about 5 layers of different types of wallpaper, and I started by just using a sponge and hot water, which is an efficient method if there's only maybe 1 or 2 layers of wallpaper to remove, but it soon became clear that this was not gonna work. So we decided to invest into this wallpaper removers. I would call it a steamer that you can use to remove wallpapers. And I honestly think that it's one of the best investments that we did for this renovation, as every single wall in this apartment has wallpaper on it that we needed to remove to get rid of the smell. So with the new tool at hand, we finally managed to get rid of all the wallpaper in the room. At this point, the new wall was also finished and it was time to deal with the strip in the ceiling that was previously covered by the wardrobes. This strip was not only a little bit thinner than the rest of the ceiling, but it also didn't have the same texture. So I started by priming the surface and then putting a layer of mud to try to even out the height difference. And with a new kind of finished and even surface, it was time to figure out how do I create this texture. I started by trying the same method that we had used in our previous apartment, where you simply put a layer of mud on and then you use a paint roller or a sponge to try to dab and in different ways create a bit of texture. And let's just say that this surface was way too big to use that method. It became very uneven and way too much texture. So I had to make the hard decision to sand everything down. And if you haven't sanded a ceiling before, I can tell you that it's really heavy for the arms and the shoulders. I wasn't super excited, but the work had to be done, and after a while I had this new surface to work with. I did some new research and I finally found this product, which is kind of a thicker paint that also contains a very fine-grained sand. And it's not a product that I could find in every paint store, but in one place I realized that it had it, so I went there, got some of this product and applied a thick layer. And to my surprise, it worked really well. I mean, the texture from the existing ceiling and this new strip were very identical. So if you have a similar problem, I would highly recommend trying to see if you can find a similar product to use, as at least in my case it worked very well. Moving on, it was time to make this other walls that previously had wallpaper on them smooth and ready for paint. You can do this in many different ways. In our last apartment we used mud. This time we wanted to try something else. And we found this product called renovation wallpaper, which simply is a thicker wallpaper, a woven one that when applied to an uneven surface creates a smooth base that you can then paint on or put other wallpaper on top of. And after watching a couple of YouTube clips, we started to get a hang of it, and it didn't take that long to put the wallpaper up on all 3 walls, but it was definitely a bit of a learning curve to understand how to deal with the corners and how to cut around the windows and the door. And after all of this hard work done, it was finally time for paint. I personally think it's one of the most exciting steps, because that's when you start to really see how your new space is gonna turn out. And this time we're a bit extra excited as we had decided to buy this paint sprayer in order to be able to refinish secondhand furniture and the secondhand kitchen. But you can use the same sprayer on walls and ceilings, and I definitely wanted to try that out. But before we could start painting, I really needed to clean the ceiling and the window frame properly. As I mentioned before, when you have this kind of cigarette smell in your space, you're also very likely to have the oily texture on your surfaces. And if you paint on top of that, the paint might not stick properly. So I spent a lot of time trying to properly clean the ceiling, again having to work those arm muscles, and also the window frame. And after a while I was happy with the result and we could tape everything off and start the painting. And in the beginning it was definitely not so easy to use the paint sprayer, but after having painted both the ceiling and the window frame as well as a base coat on this new renovation wallpaper, I think I started to get a hang of it, and so did Joachim. And with the base coat on the walls, it was time to lock down on what color do we want on the wall. I had picked a couple of different paint samples, and I think it's always really important to test your paint samples in the space that you're going to paint before you commit, because the light in every room is different and the texture on each wall is different, but also what is outside your window will impact how a paint color is perceived inside. For example, if you have a big red building opposite of your window, a lot of red light will come through and impact how the color is perceived in your space. So always do a sample before you commit. And this time I was very lucky and the samples that I picked worked very well. So the next day we could just get a bit more of the same paint color and finish all the walls. And the room now smells fresh and we have this light neutral base to work with, and I'm very excited to in the next video show you how we put in our new hardwood flooring and how we turn this secondhand IKEA wardrobe into this beautiful DIY built-in solution. So if you don't want to miss that, consider subscribing to my channel. And again, if you want to see a full empty house tour and how we're planning to design all the other rooms in this apartment, go and watch this video next. That was all for today, and if this video gave you some inspiration to maybe move on and do some DIY in your own home, please give the video a thumbs up, and I see you in the next one.